What's up, beautiful people? Look, I know you want to improve. I know you want to plan. I know you want to be organized. I know you want to be balanced. I know you want to be healthy, fulfilled. You want the world to be aligned with your potential. And today we're going to talk about 5 mistakes that we make that stop us from being productive. Some of them are actually going to seem counterintuitive to getting things done, but just stay with me. We're going to go through 5 simple things that you can get resolved today, and then on top of that I'm going to tell you what my favorite tip was, so definitely stick around to the end where I go over the one that I think changed my life the most. So go ahead and get your paper, your pen, or just take notes. There are going to be bookmarks down below in case you need to reference something back, and let's go ahead and get started. Look, so whether you're the person that has a million planners, one planner, you have a digital planner, you don't plan at all, you put things on your phone, you are just trying to find your way in life, you are highly organized but something's missing, or you're not organized at all, I really feel like these 5 mistakes are going to really help you resonate, and it may not be all 5. So keep in mind you're listening to figure out the things that resonate with you and where you're disconnected. So let's go ahead and talk about mistake number 1. First thing is, the reason that you don't get things done is because you treat your day and your plans and your to-dos like a boss instead of a tool. That means that you let it control you. So when you don't get things done, or you feel like you somehow failed part of the day, when you do get things done, you have this kind of euphoric feeling of check, check, check. I crossed everything off my to-do list. And really, the whole point of you planning, organizing, looking at your systems is for it to be a tool. It is a resource. It is something that you utilize in order to frame your life, to frame the things that you want to get done. It is not meant to be boss, lord over your life. Your to-do list doesn't control you. You control your to-do list. I know it feels like you should be able to get things done, and most days you quite honestly should. But the first thing you need to come to terms with is that whatever it is that you are planning to do, setting goals, whatever you're doing, it doesn't control you. When you see planning as a flexible guideline and a resource and a system for your world, you're a lot likely to stick with it, number one, because it doesn't feel so rigid, but you also don't feel that sense of defeat when you don't get things accomplished that you planned for the day. So first thing I want to tell you is that we are going to review and adjust our plans accordingly. We may pivot throughout the day. We may pivot throughout the week. Once again, it's a resource. So I'm giving you freedom before we even get started, where we go a little bit more granular with the other tips and mistakes, is to give yourself the freedom and understanding that your plan is not your boss. The next planning mistake that I think tons of people make is planning things back to back to back, or saying, when I get this done, I'm immediately going to start this task. So this is going to happen from 2 to 3, and at 3 o'clock then I'm going to start this. And one of the things that I think is a critical mistake is not putting buffer time in between your activities, in between your goals, in between the things that you need to get done. Now, sometimes you can't control that, and just like me, there's times where I have meetings back to back. But as much as what's in my control, I try to build in buffer time. Buffer time doesn't have to be an hour. Buffer time for me usually is 5 to 10 minutes. Just something that's built in that allows me to process, de-escalate, figure out what the action steps are, to be able to sit back and review what just happened. And I'm not just talking about work. Building in buffers between activities, like taking the kids from here to here, or having to go to this engagement from here to there. Because the thing about when you don't put buffers, it always feels like you're moving frenzied. And that is a huge mistake, because when you start that frenzied energy going from one thing to the next, it really sets the tone for your day, and quite honestly sets the tone for your life. So the problem with that is, one, disruption without having buffer time can cause a domino effect for the remainder of the day. So do your best to block blank space, white space, buffer space in your calendar. It doesn't have to be after every single activity, but think about incorporating it as much as you can. And look, secret, that buffer time doesn't mean that you have to be doing something. It may just be sitting back and reevaluating what is coming next. Y'all, this is the big one. This is the big mistake that so many people make. Not so much me, because I feel like at this point in life I've realized and come up with a way to recognize when it's happening, but it's over planning instead of over executing. I wish I could just grab your attention. Over planning versus over executing. So Diaka, what does that mean? So what this looks like is that you spend 30, 45 minutes to an hour planning. You are coming up with the routine, the details, the systems. but you are planning so much you don't leave time for execution. And the reason that this is so problematic and why it happens so often is because the feeling of planning feels productive. It feels productive to sit down and watch these type of videos. It feels productive to get your planner out and map out, this is how I'm going to do it step by step. It feels productive to get your Notion template out. It feels productive to be talking to your coworkers about, okay, this is how we're going to execute. And though planning is critical and essential, and you will never hear me talk about not planning, actually the thing that matters the most is execution. I would be honest, I would rather you have a loose plan and execute that loose plan than have a tight, beautiful plan that actually never gets executed. I need you to stop and think about all of the things that you started and stopped, all of the things that you said you were going to do that you don't do. I guarantee you at some point you probably had a plan somewhere about what it was going to look like. But because you didn't move on to execution, it didn't happen. And that is, I think, the biggest mistake that happens. You've got to understand, especially if you're watching this video, because that means you're somebody that wants to improve and wants to do better. You could watch this video, you could watch 25 videos, but girl, until you actually start moving and executing, nothing is going to change. So what I really strongly suggest you do instead, if you find yourself in this loop of sitting there and taking forever, daydreaming, planning, mapping out things, is you know where I was going. Get your timer out and say, I'm only going to plan for 15 minutes, or I'm only going to plan for 20 or 30 minutes, and that's what's going to happen. And then after that, we're going to go into execution mode. I guarantee, and this is a secret, if you actually map out what you're going to be doing instead of planning it and saying the to-do is the actual execution, not the planning, you will watch your life change. This is why I'm such a fan of time blocking, because time blocking forces you to assign action to every piece of your day. Now, I've got some other videos on time blocking, and I'm actually going to be talking about time blocking pretty soon because of an upcoming evening night routine video I'll be uploading probably next week. But time blocking is just, like, to me, chef's kiss. For some people it's a little overkill, but I really think assigning an action to each hour of the day just helps me get things done a little bit better. So get your timer out, set a timer, give yourself boundaries on how long you're gonna play. Okay, mistake number 4 is not recognizing the season of life that you're in. I am in my late 40s. I am a mother, a wife, a chief in my workplace. I am a sister, I'm an aunt. I've got a lot of roles. But my season of life for me in particular is not nearly as hectic as it was previously. And when I say previously, I'm talking about when my kids were little. I'm talking about when I wasn't as financially stable. I'm talking about when I had a million places to be, or my job was a little bit more intense. And so each ebb and flow of your life, you have to plan according to that. And sometimes what happens is that we had great success in a certain season and we are trying to replicate that success in our current season, but we're still using the plan from the previous season. Now, there are some things that I believe are threads that ring true for whatever season you're in. You will never ever hear me ignore the importance of taking care of your physical health and movement. You're never going to hear me tell you, no matter what season you are in, to ignore your morning routine, because I feel like those two things right there, when they are aligned, you're just a more productive person. But it's not recognizing that. So you have to be flexible in your plan. You have to step back without over planning, like I just said, and recognize the current season you're in and see what kind of adjustments you can make. What I really suggest for this is building minimal and optimal routines, minimal and optimal outcomes. What would be the best case scenario if I get this done at the level that I want it to? And then what's the level that, okay, if I don't get the best case, I would still believe that I put a good effort forward and I actually made progress here. And then sometimes you'll find yourself in the between. And guess what? Because the very first tip was that you are not owned by your system or planner, you will be okay and come to peace when you don't even hit the minimum. You just can't make that your habit. And then the final mistake that I think is one that's hard to kind of conceptualize, but just stick with me, is planning everything without actually looking at your energy levels, without actually understanding when your peak time of day is where you perform the best. I'm a morning person, but I'm a night person. And let me say this. So I'm a person that is the most productive in the morning. That is where I am in my flow state. I'm getting things done. I get up early. I'm a 5 o'clock person. I thrive in that time of the day. I believe naturally, though, I am a night person that has adapted by understanding that my energy is best in the early part of the day. And so what you've got to understand is, when are you the most alert? When are you the most in your zone? When are you the most successful? And when I say that, you may not be a 5 o'clock person. As much as I love a good morning routine, I would never tell everybody that they need to be a morning person. I can honestly say, when my kids were little and they would go to sleep and they were in the bed, that is usually where I came up with most of my best ideas or most of my productivity, is when they were quiet and my house was quiet and it was still. And so I would often do some of my best work or some of my best thoughts or pour back into myself the most during that time of day. So you've got to really kind of think about how you're mapping out your time and your energy and what that looks like. So if you've never done this, just think about tracking your energy for a week. Think about where you thrive the most, where you find the successful points of the day, but also think about where you're the most tired. For me, y'all, between like 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, even though I'm still at work, like that's usually where I like hit my just like wall, because I've been up since 5, I've worked out, I've done a lot. And so I eat lunch usually about noon. So that time after I eat my lunch, oh my God, that is the time of day where I am not going to be trying to do my most productive work, because of course I'm alert, I'm working, I'm doing the things I need to do. It is just not my favorite time. And then I usually get just a little bit of energy, of course, right before I get off, because I know I'm almost done with the day. And then like I drive home and I'm tired, but y'all, when I get in the house, I'm usually pretty good, because I get back into my flow state of productivity in order to make my evening and my night routines good and solid, so that my morning routine is good and solid. So here's what I want you to do. I only want you to pick one of these mistakes that you feel like resonated with you the most. Don't try to go out and fix all 5 if you were like, dang, all 5, that's me. Pick one and focus on that one for the next week. Really drill in and think about it. Are you somebody that is allowing your to-do list to control your life? Are you somebody that is not keeping up with your energy? Are you somebody that is spending way too much planning and not executing? Think about where you have a deficit, and think about how you can kind of plug in some of the things that we talked about in this video in order to create the best, smoothest plan. Notice that in every video I never say perfect, because nothing is ever perfect, but things can always be better. So as always, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe below. Let me know, like in the comments below, which one of these mistakes do you feel like you definitely lean into the most? And I will see you in the next video.